What is an undeniably evil profession? Story 1. Family vloggers and influencers who use their kids for content really cross a line. It's one thing to share moments, but turning a child's life into constant entertainment for views and profit? That's exploitation, plain and simple. Answer: I do live streams for our astronomy club. My kid is 9. He always wants to pop in and say hi before he goes to bed. I have no problem with that. I do not want to sit with him and do a live stream. I don't want him to have his own channel or anything. I definitely don't want to make a channel for him. He's a kid figuring out who he is, and no child should have someone doing that for them. Similarly, when my wife was pregnant, people asked if we were going to name him after me. Make him a junior. To me, that's weird. A child should have their own identity, not tied so closely to their parents. Story 2. Any job that thrives on exploitation, like scam call centers or trafficking rings, is undeniably evil. It's not the title, but the intent and impact that matter. If harm is the goal or profit comes from others' suffering, that's evil, plain and simple. Story 3. Health insurance company deciders. The ones who automatically deny everything with the full knowledge that all the person has to do is submit a simple appeal and it'll be approved, but that most people won't even bother submitting an appeal. All done to help maximize the profit of the insurance company. Story 4. Scalpers, resellers of any sort. Some people just want to have hobbies, but they can't cause resellers are buying everything up and forcing people who are desperate to pay a crazy market. My favorite stories are when a reseller buys all of something and fails to sell it. Story 5. Healthcare CEO in America. It's actually your job to drive practices that prevent people from getting health care by denying as many claims as possible. United Health shareholders are suing them for not denying enough health care after the Luigi situation. Answer: they don't necessarily deny claims. If they did, at least the patient would have gotten what they needed done. Of course, to be harassed later by whomever didn't get paid. They will, however, deny prior authorization. Be refusing to pay ahead of time, the patient can't get done whatever they need to get done unless they're willing to cough up 50, 100K in advance. The insurance company's cop-out is, we aren't telling you not to have your procedure done. If you think you need it, you should have it. So, when that unnecessary hysterectomy isn't done and the patient bleeds to passing, or has a heart attack or whatever, the insurance company says, we didn't tell them not to do it. We just said we're not going to pay for it, which for most people means they can't have it done. Story 6. Psychics, especially those that claim to talk to the dead. These people literally change people's memories of their loved ones and also convince them that they need to pay someone in order to talk to their dead loved ones. They put themselves in between a person and their dead loved ones. It's a truly sinister industry, and if there is a God, psychics will burn in hell. Answer: oh, I know a decent amount of them. Some of them I would not divine smite because they are deeply troubled people that are severely ill and need professional help to realize that the spastic attacks they force upon themselves are just their bodies asking for help and not the spirit of an African witch coming back. And then there's the grifters. And fudge the concept of hell. I'm not betting on God existing. We fudge send the grifters to jail for scamming and conning people desperate to believe their loved ones can talk to them beyond the grave. I have a special one where we find the buyers. And by that I mean the absolute buffoons who spend way too much money trying to curse their sister-in-law because she absolutely gave you the evil eye, and that's why your life sucks, and we use the money we get from them to pay for the psychologist they absolutely need. Why, yes, I've been around too many of them. How can you tell? Story 7. The people who deny insurance claims. Most of them only have a high school education. If I, someone who works in healthcare, can't prescribe myself medicine that I've previously taken and know works, then people without a medical degree shouldn't be able to deny claims that someone with an actual medical degree and valid license thought was necessary and important. Story 8. Some corporate lawyers are pure evil. Want to go to the press about how the company's pharmaceutical trials are fraudulent? Sorry, bud, you signed an NDA. Let the lack of ethics continue until somebody dies. Story 9. Police officer in a dictatorship oligarchy. You're not there to protect your fellow citizens. You're there to protect the regime from them. The type of person who would want to be a part of that system of oppression is the backbone of any functioning autocracy. Story 10. Had a math teacher who was a genius, way overqualified to be teaching high school math. He used to work as a statistician for large corporations. Some of the work he liked, like using parabolic graphs to figure out the most efficient ways to size boxes for shipping. But then there's having to present the most efficient time to fire people to maximize their use as an employee, or only giving employees a certain number of hours so they won't be entitled to certain benefits. He explained every evil thing he was required to do under his employment contract many years ago now, so I don't remember all the details, but it was bad enough that he broke contract, left his job, and became a high school math teacher. Story 11. CEO of health insurance companies. Every last thing they buy, every yacht, every car, every mansion, any plane, are all at the expense of the poor people they deny health insurance claims for, resulting in the deaths of thousands of innocent poor people just to expand their ever-growing wealth. Every CEO of any health insurance company is pure fudge evil. Story 12. Anyone involved in health insurance claims. That job is designed to reject as many claims as possible, costing the lives of millions of people. It's evil, and it should be criminal to deny anyone any health care that is recommended by health professionals. Story 13. Healthcare executives maximize shareholder profit by getting customers to pay a lot for services. They'll have to fight with the company they pay to actually be able to use the services they'll pay for. The people at the top design it to be easy to pay for, but hard to use. Story 14. Somewhere out there, there's someone who has always been good at math. They go, get an advanced degree, and then go work for a company. Pharmaceuticals, automotive, transportation, insurance, etc., where their purpose in life becomes calculating the cheapest way for a company to get out of a malignant situation that they have caused doing the right thing or tolerating lawsuits. For example, oops, we made a bunch of cars that accidentally explode. Would it be cheaper to settle wrongful passing lawsuits? Or is it cheaper to recall and fix our product that might just end a family of 4 and their dog? They're also the ones that provide a lot of the risk analysis on the healthcare decisions y'all are calling out as evil. I submit for your consideration. The actuary. Granted, there are probably a lot of actuaries that don't do these kinds of things, but then again, they evaluate risk, and risk is such a dangerous, slippery slope term in almost every industry it applies to because of the lengths corporations will go to avoid touching the bottom line. But they're definitely one of the few professions that I know of that'll dispassionately slap a dollar figure on a human life. Story 15. Bookies. Gambling ruins entire families and leaves innocent people to pay the debts of hopeless gamblers. I despise them as much as I despise the other most evil profession, substances dealing. Substances and gambling are so destructive. Story 16. CEO of a health insurance company. Your job is literally to facilitate denying as many claims as possible to people that are actively dying and in need of serious help. Like they directly benefit when people die. Can't get more evil than that. Story 17. Scientific studies for hire. Like that doctor that released the fake study linking autism and vaccines, he was paid by a lawyer to do the study because they needed to create fake evidence for a bogus class action lawsuit. Story 18. Insurance salesman. Most of the time, the insurance company is not going to do their part, but we have to buy anyway. You can pay your payments for years, and when something happens, they won't cover you. They've got some policy in place that you failed to read that will screw you over. It's a nasty business. Story 19. Influencers. Every single one of them. It's all how to scam people the most and not have a real job. It's a job asking for handouts, and you can tell this because society would thonrethi and not be phased if that job was eliminated. Story 20. I once met this really big nerdy dude, and he was telling me about how his job is to literally remotely control drones overseas. I just pictured this dude with a sourdough jack in one hand and in the other. He's bombing a bunch of Syrians. I feel like that's pretty evil, LOL. Story 21. Politician. I'll never mourn the passing of someone who makes a profession out of fudge everyone around them while telling them it's their fault these things are happening. But to be fair, so many people buy it. It's sad. Story 22. The U.S. police system. Not the individual officers, but the profession itself. The modern police force has its origins in slave and labor control. They have an inherent legacy of racialized social control rather than community protection. Historically, police have been used to enforce class divisions and suppress labor movements. The police operate with a state-sanctioned monopoly on the use of force. This power creates an environment where the threat of violence is always present in interactions, leading to disproportionate harm, particularly against vulnerable populations. Training often emphasizes a warrior cop mindset, fostering an us versus them dynamic between the police officers and members of the public. This leads to escalated situations and a greater use of force, rather than de-escalation or community engagement. Departments often operate on a strong code of the blue wall of silence and resist external oversight. Investigations are insufficient, leading to a lack of accountability for misconduct, excessive force, and even criminal behavior by officers and qualified immunity shields officers from liability, making it extremely difficult to hold any of them. Accountable. Every police duty would be better served by specialized independent agencies. Instead of police, independent agencies staffed by mental health professionals, social workers, and crisis intervention specialists can respond to calls involving mental health crises, substance abuse, and homelessness. Traffic violations and accident responses do not require armed officers. Independent agencies of civilian traffic agents could handle these duties, focusing on safety and compliance rather than revenue generation through ticketing or potentially encounters. For nonviolent disputes and low-level crimes, independent community-based organizations could facilitate restorative justice processes, focusing on repairing harm, reconciliation, and addressing underlying issues rather than solely on punishment. Programs that employ credible community members to mediate conflicts and de-escalate violence in specific neighborhoods have proven effective in reducing crime without police intervention. These programs operate independently and build trust within communities. For complex criminal investigations that require specialized skills, many aspects of investigation, such as evidence collection and forensic analysis, could be performed by independent civilian investigators and forensic scientists, reducing the need for armed officers. Story 23. insurance claims adjuster, executive, or director, attorney who works with Palantir, BlackRock, Boeing, or any other companies that provide passing services for police, prosecutors, etc. There's no winning when money is the motivation. Story 24. Is this why I have 43 recruiters persistently contacting me out of nowhere, even though I never applied for any job? They do not give up. One guy sent me a picture of his lunch in an effort to get me to answer his multiple messages. Another asked weird questions like what my favorite color is and my dog's name. Story 25. When I was 20, I lived in Billings, Montana. A friend of mine invited me to this party on the res. I agreed, the date comes, and we head out there. 40 minutes later, we get out to these 4 double wides arranged in a square. Turns out it was a res gang hangout. One trailer was the HQ, another was an underground hospital, and the other 2 were for the prostitutes. In the center, they did blood sports, dog fighting, cockfighting, and gambling. It was some of the most terrifying hours of my life. I couldn't leave because homie was my ride, and I'm not walking 3 hours in the dark while tipsy to get back home. So I just sipped my beer and tried to forget the sights and sounds. This was the most evil place I ever visited. Answer: oh shoot. That's bananas. I have a very similar story. A date with this gorgeous Tejano dude turned out to be a huge party with blood sports, human, dog, El Palenque. Lots of working girls, lots of adult beverage, lots of coke. The worst is that sometimes a funky blend of smells will send me right back there. That night fudged me up. I love a fiesta, but this was dicked up. I'm boring, apparently. I want to dance, I want to eat food, I want to sing songs and make love. I dislike danger. I thought there would be a chocoflan. There wasn't even a churro. Story 26. I used to work for a payday loan company. Truly evil shoot, and they don't care about people at all. I dislike every second of it. We would give these people cash knowing they'll only pay it back once or twice. Harass them with reminder calls, harass them with debt calls. Then, if someone miraculously breaks the cycle, we would do marketing calls to try and get them back in, offering some sort of shoot deal for them to take out another $400 to $500 loan, typically right before the holiday season. Story 27. They saved me money plenty of times. Overdraft fee of $32 for every transaction, or $15 to borrow $100 until Friday. It's really an easy choice when you have multiple small transactions because your bank processes your largest transaction first. Story 28. The delicious irony of using the concept of God and faith into manipulating people to give you as much of their money as possible. If any of those poor fools just read the section of the Bible where Jesus warns everyone to stay away from those people and instead focus on helping others who are less well off and their general community with volunteer work. Story 29. I don't think I have seen a single family vlogger who isn't either straight up evil or at the very least problematic. It's the one YouTube genre where you just know they are going to get arrested someday. Answer: knowing that child abuse material has a substantial market on the internet, I cannot fathom even publicly posting photos of your children online. Let alone the families vloggers who intentionally post videos bathing their children, taking them to the pool, sleeping in bed, or revealing information about where they live and go to school. I truly think the majority of them realize who their audience is and leverage it for money. I find it disgusting and evil. There are plenty of parenting channels that give great advice without ever showing their child's face, or even their child at all. Story 30. I do live streams for our astronomy club. My kid is 9. He always wants to pop in and said hi before he goes to bed. I have no problem with that. I do not want to sit with him and do a live stream. I don't want him to have his own channel or anything. I definitely don't want to make a channel for him. He's a kid figuring out who he is, and no child should have someone doing that for them. Similarly, when my wife was pregnant, people asked if we were going to name him after me, make him a junior. To me, that's weird. A child should have their own identity, not tied so closely to their parents. Story 31. Yep, you also have to consider that for every so many minutes of video, there are X amount of more minutes or hours of actual filming. You know, there are some that probably started genuinely, but eventually with success, they start doing the one more shot. Story 32. This. Also, it is disgusting ableism when people only see it as exploitation when the kids are neurotypical. The amount of ableist jerks who are suddenly okay with this exploitation when the kid has autism is very telling gross. Story 33. I went to a school in Massachusetts that is known, or at least was 20 years ago, for having a world-class photography and videography program. A friend of a friend who graduated with high honors from the photography program got a job at TMZ out of college and moved out to LA. We were kinda jealous because that sounded like a pretty glamorous gig right out of school. But according to my friend who was friends with the guy, they regretted every minute of it. Story 34. Bonus for how harassing and invading people's privacy are almost constantly rewarded traits for paparazzi to have, even at the cost of actively endangering their victims. How paparazzi being a profession is still a thing after the passing of Princess Diana will be one of life's great injustices. Story 35. The real problem, though, is that there is such a huge demand for it. I agree that the paparazzi themselves are a problem, but if there weren't such a colossal chunk of the population that is obsessed with famous people, those jobs wouldn't exist. Story 36. Many years ago, I was hired by a security company that has rich clients. Clients in the hills, they always wanted guards for their properties. It turns out that the paparazzi are the ones causing headaches all day. The paparazzi have all sorts of help, meaning as in legal help. That's why they look like they're unstoppable. They will break into your property to get that picture. They will wait outside your property, your driveway. You can call the authorities and they will take them away for a bit, only for them to get bailed out, and they continue doing their work. This really sucks because you have all these people constantly breaking the law and going out of their ways to invade your privacy. They're relentless and evil people. Story 37. Especially the pandemic medical ones. I look back on that guy in the news with his son's story about how all his hoarded medical items were taken by the government, and his family couldn't live because he didn't get a chance to jack up the price and resell them. I hope he's having a miserable life. Story 38. Imagine the dread of waking up for work every morning knowing you are just going to be cold, calling elders trying to steal their money. That's your purpose. Just wake up, scam people, sleep. Eventually, the realization that the world would be a better place without you in it has to kick in, and you have to actively still continue to put in effort and work to harm others, despite the depression kicking in. That not only does your life's work have no meaning, it's actively harming others and making the world worse. And that's something you are working towards and have to be successful at. Your success. Is another's harm completely parasitic in nature? Story 39. Yeah, I constantly have to fight people on this, but healthcare is where capitalism really breaks down. If the question is, how much money will you pay to stay alive? The answer is basically always, all of my money, even more than all of my money, every resource I can conceivably get my hands on. When done outside of a hospital, this is normally referred to as mugging. But inside one, apparently, it's okay. Story 40. Dude, fudge, yes, it's crazy I'm a traveling surgical tech, and in some systems it straight up shows you how much the hospital paid for that particular item. Then I've seen patients' bills for surgery, where it goes line by line to show you why your surgery cost this much, and the markup is fudge insane, like I honestly don't know how in the fudge they get away with it. Story 41. It doesn't even work. Some of the troubled children are abused, which means shouting and poor treatment won't work at these teen concentration camps. And the parents of these children usually use them as daycares so they can go on a substances spree. Story 42. Not necessarily the individual people who do it, although it is annoying to get constant invites to their parties. A lot of them are just victims of the scam too. But the people who run it and know exactly what they're doing. Yep. Story 43. Slightly off topic, but why didn't cigarette companies ever go green? Tobacco isn't full of cancer-causing substances naturally. You'd think they would have taken them out and found a suitable replacement. Not like they can call them healthy, but still. Answer. Tobacco Absolutely 100 contains carcinogens naturally. A total of 83 carcinogens has been identified, 37 in unburned tobacco and 80 in tobacco smoke, with their occurrence levels reported since 2012. Adopted from their work, we have classified all the tobacco carcinogens, with the exception of carcinogens derived from pesticides and growth regulators in tobacco products, into 10 subgroups with minor modifications. Moreover, wood smoke is carcinogenic, candle smoke is carcinogenic, but negligible probably as long as you're not inhaling it directly. Cooking smoke is carcinogenic. Smoke is carcinogenic no matter what makes it. There is no safe, clean, healthy way to burn tobacco. Nicotine isn't directly carcinogenic, but it isn't good for you. Smokeless tobacco has carcinogens. Vaping probably has carcinogens. There is no safe, healthy way to consume nicotine. Don't get me wrong, I smoke a tobacco pipe, but I'm not deluding myself. And I limit it to once per week to minimize, but not totally eliminate, the risk. Story 44. And the kind of messed up part is that United Healthcare is over 65, owned by you and me and all the other regular people of the world. The people responsible for managing the mutual funds that all of our 401ks are tied up in are the people pushing for United Healthcare to be as bad as possible. It's good for your and my retirement account. Story 45. They don't necessarily deny claims. If they did, at least the patient would have gotten what they needed done. Of course, to be harassed later by whomever didn't get paid. They will, however, deny prior authorization, be refusing to pay ahead of time. The patient can't get done whatever they need to get done, unless they're willing to cough up 50, 100K in advance. The insurance company's cop-out is, we aren't telling you not to have your procedure done. If you think you need it, you should have it. So, when that unnecessary hysterectomy isn't done, and the patient bleeds to passing or has a heart attack or whatever, the insurance company says, we didn't tell them not to do it. We just said we're not going to pay for it, which for most people means they can't have it done. Story 46. The upside about being schizophrenic. If I want to talk with my deceased grandparents, I just have to not take my meds for a week. It's actually cheaper for me to talk to them than not to. Obviously a joke, this disease fudge sucks and wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. Story 47. Oh, I know a decent amount of them. Some of them I would not divine smite because they are deeply troubled people that are severely ill and need professional help to realize that the spastic attacks they force upon themselves are just their bodies asking for help and not the spirit of an African witch coming back. And then there's the grifters, and fudge the concept of hell. I'm not betting on God existing. We fudge send the grifters to jail for scamming and conning people, desperate to believe their loved ones can talk to them beyond the grave. I have a special one where we fine the buyers. And by that I mean the absolute buffoons who spend way too much money trying to curse their sister-in-law because she absolutely gave you the evil eye, and that's why your life sucks, and we use the money we get from them to pay for the psychologist they absolutely need. Why, yes, I've been around too many of them, how can you tell?